We'll get started now, and I promise to answer questions at the end, but only if they're really good questions. So please make sure to ask tough ones. Think about stump the quasi-expert here, so please think about those questions. My goal today is to share a few ideas about brand, managing the brand, maybe some of the challenges and opportunities as a center that we have seen over the years, and maybe share some of those lessons. I believe one of the things that excites me about the International Association for Continuing Engineering Education is the level of disclosure and sharing that occurs, and I appreciate that, and I hope that I can continue that. Also looking forward to Porto, where Alfredo will be hosting us. We want to get ready for that session as well. And we hope that a series of these webinars will actually engage you to join us there. So let me get started. As we think about brand, and there are many perspectives on brand, certainly the definition that comes to mind is really a name, term, or design or symbol that represents or distinguishes one brand from another. And in thinking about this, I thought a lot about some of the brands that have come to mind, and certainly International Business Machines is an iconic and global brand now. They began in the late 1800s and have emerged through interesting times on occasion to maintain their brand, to extend and expand, and in fact, in some regard, change completely what they do. And yet, somehow this symbol comes to mean sort of quality, big blue, they're known. And despite the gyrations of the market and at some point experts calling for their demise, they're still here, and they're a strong company and getting ever stronger as cloud-based and service-based approaches occur. Intel is another brand founded in 1968 here in the Silicon Valley, and certainly you can almost hear the music at the end of their television commercials. And as well, they have this concept of the Intel inside, and so people have clearly understood their brand and the power that company generates. Another famous brand around here, the largest market capitalization, company by market capitalization is Apple. Again, they went through some interesting times. They had, before Steve Jobs came back to Apple, they almost shuttered their doors, and I don't know how many people remember, but Microsoft loaned them $150 million to get off their feet to sustain that. And yet, if you think about that, Apple, everyone knows what that means. It's a focus on design quality, a terrific user interface experience, and so on. Another iconic and global brand, Coca-Cola, I'll talk a little bit about them later, but this brand matters. You know exactly what you're getting. People tend to smile, think about family, food, and refreshments, and certainly a powerful brand. Another one that's here local to the U.S. is Southwest Airlines. Herb Kelleher has created one of the most successful focused brands. Rather than flying hub and spokes, they do point-to-point travel at less frequently traveled airports and have created a successful model around humor and around convenience. And then finally, McDonald's. Everybody knows the Golden Arches. When we were kids, I remember taking a trip and my parents talking about the Golden Arches, and I didn't quite know what they meant as a 6-year-old. And when I saw them, I made that association. Today, they have struggled recently to provide effective meals, particularly in the U.S., where the market consumers are becoming more aware about high-quality food. But they still do a tremendous job around the globe, fast and convenient meals for the active family. So these are some of the brands. As you think about the Stanford brand, there are some words and associations that occur. And this is important because our center, as a continuing engineering education unit, is nested inside not only the Stanford brand, but also the School of Engineering brand. And I'd like to sort of parse those in just a little bit as a way to maybe get your units thinking about how you consider brand. So certainly when you think about Stanford, quality comes to mind. Quality both in terms of the education experience, but also the facilities and the location here. It's just all about focus on quality. That has to inform how we as a unit deliver to our constituents. Selectivity is certainly something that Stanford prides itself on. We actually are very selective with regard to our faculty, but also in the way that we select our students. We're very careful. In fact, Stanford this year for our undergraduate population is the most selective university in the country. We have a short but distinguished history, having grown up here in the Bay Area as a legacy to the Leland Stanford family and Leland Stanford's only son, Leland Stanford Jr., who passed away of typhoid fever. To honor him, they created this university. And at the outset, we thought about doing things differently, providing an active education and experience to those who engage with Stanford. Whether it's a residential experience or more recently through our center, a distance education experience. So making a difference and having people roll up their sleeves, quite literally here. This place was actually known as the farm, and so we have that same spirit is imbued in some of the products and services that we offer. Exclusivity is certainly something that we pride ourselves. And I want to highlight that this exclusivity, the club that you get to join as a graduate, it actually runs counter to what our center is trying to do, extending Stanford's education far beyond the borders here. And so I'll talk a little bit about the challenges that the Stanford brand plays in context of our delivering to a broader audience. Certainly high price is something that Stanford is also known for, one of the most expensive degrees that money can buy. And there's a flip side of that money. A recent study showed that Stanford graduates do reasonably well in the marketplace over time as their careers progress. I think here's the manifestation of some of those elements of the brand. Here's the logo that we see. I mentioned Leland Stanford Junior University. That is the official name of the university. We're also proud of our athletics. We have a terrific football team of late, although recently we've lost a couple of games. But we've won this year's the Directors Cup, which is representative of the Division I school that has won a cumulative most titles throughout the year. We've won this every year that it's been available, actually. And we hope that that streak continues. So that's another brand and how people view Stanford. And finally, here's the new logo, the new word lockup for the School of Engineering. While not perhaps as inspiring and iconic as these other two representations of Stanford, it certainly conveys an image that the School of Engineering has recently created. Now we, SCPD, are a nested doll inside of these brands, arguably. And so as we think about how we relate to the School of Engineering, it's important to understand what the School of Engineering brand represents and how we then can complement that as part of this. So the School of Engineering is certainly pioneering. Many of the companies in the Silicon Valley emerged from our center. We are quite entrepreneurial. If you think about the number of companies recently, Google, Yahoo, Instagram, all came from the Stanford School of Engineering, emerged from here. And in fact, our commitment to entrepreneurship is so significant that we have a group called the Stanford Technology Ventures Program with whom we work very closely to develop and deliver entrepreneurship education to engineers with the assumption that they will actually go on and create these companies. Our goal at the school is to create a worldwide impact, whether it's from nanotechnology, whether we're looking at electrical engineering, computer science, which is a part of the School of Engineering, or design thinking and innovation. The design school, the Hasso-Plattner School of Design, is part of the School of Engineering, as well as management science and engineering. All those units and faculty strive to have a worldwide impact, and in more increasingly looking across disciplines to recognize that the large, interesting challenges in the world are all about combining management science and engineering with policy decisions and maybe biosensors to create opportunities to solve some of human health challenges in third world countries, for example. And certainly our focus is high-quality research and teaching, likely in that order, by the way, as an R1 university. So in this context, how does a unit like the Stanford Center for Professional Development, the unit that I direct, serve the school and its constituents? So we think we've been pioneering. We actually were the first in 1997 to deliver a master's degree in an engineering discipline. So we're quite proud of that record. Dr. Andy DiPaolo, my former boss, who's now Executive Director Emeritus, was involved in that pioneering activity, leveraging online platform to deliver this online master's degree in 1997. I'll come back to the timing a little bit later. We're entrepreneurial. We have a center that generates revenue over expenses, as they call it here on the campus. That helps fund departments and faculty who participate with us so they can continue their great research and teaching here on Stanford's campus. While our faculty aspire to create worldwide impact, we're trying to help extend to potentially a global audience now the service and support, the kinds of things that might engage students at a distance. Again, extending our Stanford faculty beyond the borders. The Stanford faculty think about the residential experience here and the students on the Stanford campus. Through our graduate programs, we broaden the classroom, we extend the classroom. And more recently, and this is where the story gets interesting, I'll talk about our professional programs that extend far beyond the borders. And then finally, while the Stanford faculty think about high-quality research and teaching, we think about ways to deliver high-quality experience to the students and constituents that we serve. Not only the students, by the way, but also our faculty. So with that as context, I wonder a little bit about what people are thinking about your unit. We've actually struggled on occasion with our identity inside this nested doll framework. And I wonder, I have a polling question here, if you can help me out, just give me a sense. How many of your units have struggled with identity if you're involved in a continuing engineering education unit? How have you been able to align with what I would call the mothership, the main university, or the units into which you report? Is there a clear vision of what you could or what you are? Do you have opportunities but perhaps roadblocks and confusion? And or is there, sort of lacking a clear vision and, trying to think about ways to clarify that? And really there's no clear vision of what we can do. Now, this is an anonymous poll, so please make your selections to the right. And once you're finished with that, hit the submit button for me so that we can know what you're thinking. So I'll give you about another 5 seconds, and then we'll close the polls and spend a minute here or so to just debrief on those polls. So can you please close the polls, and we'll take a look at maybe at the results here. So it looks as if there are clear opportunities, but lots of roadblocks is the primary answer. Some clear vision, maybe a few lacking, so I would say the majority of there, and 9 of you decided not to answer it, even though there's anonymity, I promise you that. But anyway, there's another polling question surfacing, so perhaps we'll get more results there. So in thinking about one of the realities that we encountered as we, as a center, have been delivering graduate education and degrees in mediated form, television primarily, and in 1997 then using the internet, we have seen the market evolve and change dramatically. So I want to spend a few moments talking about the evolving market. In engineering education particularly, there's been lots of focus on depth of knowledge in a specific discipline. That's something that Stanford does very well. And as we, as an externally facing unit, thinking about the person in the world of work, have interfaced with companies and graduates of our on-campus programs, we've seen an interest in even a desire, a requirement to expand the breadth of knowledge. So we talk about the T-shaped engineer, having both the knowledge in a specific discipline, but also the top of that, being able to connect with other colleagues and other opportunities by understanding entrepreneurship, innovation, and leadership. This is an important evolution because if you start to think about that, it starts to inform the career of an engineer. And this is granted an oversimplification, but I think it roughly holds true that engineers and scientists generally enter the market at what we call the line level. And then they often evolve without guidance and information, education, to become middle managers, and some few of them may emerge to join the C-level ranks of executives, maybe the CTO, chief scientist, and this kind of thing. And, you know, as an organization trying to serve the lifelong education needs of the person in the world of work, which is our mission, it's important to understand this market and what you're delivering at what time. So, of course, our center was steeped in delivering graduate education for many years, and we continue to do that today. There was an opportunity we saw in the mid to late 90s to evolve a professional and executive education offering and also offer emerging trends. We know that engineering disciplines particularly never sit still. It was important for us to think about what's emerging and how we can deliver to these managers and mid-level executives. And then finally, we do have and provide, particularly through our Graduate School of Business here at Stanford, but also we provide some what we call executive education programs for that C-level category. So this is roughly how we have seen and what's changed over a period of time as we think about the career of an engineer and how the market has evolved in its thinking. So really we began to see an opportunity. We would deliver a graduate education which has attributes that I've listed here. High-priced in the marketplace. It is faculty-driven content. It should be because it's associated with a graduate degree and that there's a significant amount of rigor as we build graduate programs. There's limited contact, both our faculty connecting with the industry student who may have a full-time job, family commitments, and so on, and is not proximate to the campus, not resident here. It's difficult to get accepted to our graduate programs. Typically 8 in 10 get rejected, so 2 in 10 are accepted. So we're leaving on the table bright people who are engaged and interested but can't get admitted to the Stanford graduate experience. There's fairly little flexibility. Typically courses are offered once a year, sometimes every other year, and there's a 10-week window. If you miss that 10-week window and you can get in, you can take the course. But if you miss it or you're not able to, that opportunity is not afforded you. So we felt we had an obligation, if we're going to address the lifelong learning needs of engineers, to think about ways to expand that. And then it's really faculty-only content delivery. We don't have any instructors. Often this theory is very important. But sometimes companies, particularly as companies go global and are faster moving, are less interested in the theory and more about creating results. So we began to conceive in the late 90s about combining both our graduate education, maintaining that portfolio, and expanding the professional education non-credit enrollments. And I'll talk about that journey. We actually took all the attributes on the left and thought about ways to modify and adapt it to create a successful professional ed, thus changing our brand in some level. And there's risk with that, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But we wanted to have modest and flexible pricing rather than the highest price in the marketplace for these non-credit programs. We wanted to have industry-informed offerings. We wanted to talk to industry, figure out what their needs were, and try to evolve offerings that would meet that need. We wanted to increase our customer touch. We saw that there's more competition in this space, so we needed to have a better, more informed customer service experience. Rather than rejecting 8 in 10, we had hoped to accept 8 in 10. Our goal was to try to think about how to balance and serve those folks in the world of work who were interested in Stanford but couldn't get anything from us. And we wanted to allow for enrollment anytime, not just in that quarter, maybe once or twice a year, but what if we could create opportunities, education opportunities that were 24/7, 365, particularly leveraging our online capability in 1997, which was reasonably robust for our graduate programs. We thought we could leverage it for, and create a global presence, to be honest. And then finally blend Stanford and industry faculty. So in thinking about that, we did have to start considering how we would do this. So we began, as many university faculty and units begin with sort of building a few pilot programs. We actually developed in 1997-98 timeframe 4 short courses. We were proud of those short courses, and we learned some really valuable lessons. So they were successful because they delivered us lessons, but from a financial and support perspective, I would view them as significant failures, but it's good to learn from failure. We knew and learned that quality in everything matters. One of the early short courses that we delivered, and I'll tell a story here, was eco-design. A faculty member was really interested in eco-design and saw an opportunity to create some interesting content working with leading-edge firms. And then we provided box lunches. The box lunches were in plastic. And one of the very eco-sensitive designers said, well, how come you didn't provide this in a paper bag? It would have been much more eco-friendly. So thinking about delivering quality in all phases and actually considering how you deliver, what you deliver is really important to reflect that quality. Remember, Stanford at its core is all about quality, and it's one of those elements that I shared in the brand. We weren't thinking about that. The customers were much more demanding and cost sensitive in the professional and exec ed arena, so we had to address that. Our graduate programs, second to none, very exclusive and quite high priced, and these products and programs couldn't be that way. The customers were comparing. They could go online and compare these offerings by and large. And the faculty who were really top-notch were already busy and committed doing other things. So this was a particular sticky problem. We had worked with faculty who were just willing to work with us to develop these first 4 short courses. And arguably they weren't the very top-notch in their field working with us because those faculty were already busy. So we thought about, okay, how do we move forward here? We really wanted to focus on area of Stanford strength and get the best faculty. We needed to create the right incentives for our faculty to get them engaged. We had to evolve and develop a support team that was thinking about the bagged lunch versus the boxed lunch to make sure that our theory and practices were aligned. And then we wanted to capture and extend that, leveraging our online capability to make a difference and create an aftermarket opportunity, not just the experience on Stanford's campus, but that aftermarket. And then we knew it was absolutely critical with a non-credit program to blend Stanford faculty and industry so that people could walk away with both the conceptual framework and practical applications and tools as they went back to work on Monday. So as we thought about that, we saw a need to conceive of a model that would get us there so we could share it fairly simply with faculty. And my next polling question is to all of you. How many of you have evolved a model to develop content in either the graduate or professional education arena, have thought through the elements of this? Here are a list of questions on the right. There are some answers. We've done a couple of polls already, so I'll move through this quickly. First is we have a model in place to develop. We have a general idea. The C is we defer to faculty, really a faculty service model, which is a very good one. And we have no model for developed content. So if you could submit your answers now, I'll give you about another 10 seconds or so to evaluate and submit your polls. Hopefully we get more results than the last time round in a specific area. I think I've forced the choice here. So if we could close the polls now and maybe take a look at the results, Chris. My colleague Chris Kong is here helping, doing a tremendous job in making sure that the technology works and you're getting served. So the poll has ended, and take a look at the results here. Standing by for the results. Here we go. So 6 of you really have a model in place. That seems to be the predominant answer. 8 chose not to answer, perhaps are checking urgent emails, but that's okay. We appreciate the answers here. I think one of the things I wanted to share is a fairly simple model that we've evolved to actually answer this question. Based on this experience, having scattered a bunch of content for four pilot short courses and then thinking about where we want it to go, we actually have evolved a model that has three domains. One is really focused on Stanford content and research. We have to have Stanford faculty, academic directors, and leads, ideally tenure-line faculty that will help develop and evolve these programs. We need, in the professional programs in particular, industry contributions, and we need to talk with industry to make sure they're ready and interested in this area. Some of our faculty have amazing content. There are 3 or 4 people in the world who are interested. While the market may be ready, I'm not sure that we can build a successful program or course from that space. So we need to be evaluating what our faculty are doing based on the industry readiness. And we have to have people who are willing to commit their funds and time to join us for the programs that we create. So the ideal spot is in the middle where we can build. It takes us 3 to 5 years to build not just one course, but we're thinking always about a certificate program. Even if we have a vision toward one course, we want to encourage faculty, is there an opportunity to connect it to other things? We know that capturing one customer one time is possible, but if we can capture one customer for many courses, we think that's much better. And we give them a clear path. They understand the commitment that we've made to a certificate concept, a larger program in their course of study. And we hope that in that way we can capture and develop a program that has a much longer lifespan than just one time, one instance, 3 days at Stanford for a short course on nanotechnology. Rather, we want to evolve a program that will last 10 years based on the commitment that we make to the faculty and also that the commitment that the market expects from us, focused on quality and long-term execution. So this is how we've evolved our content model. Fairly simple. I want to provide 2 case studies in the next 10 minutes or so to sketch this concept of a model, the opportunity that we saw, and how we actually delivered and executed on that. So in 1998, we began talking with a faculty member, Ray Levitt, who was a civil environmental engineering faculty who had done some construction management content. And a couple of important contextual elements for that program. First, we knew that online was just emerging. Delivering online education was emerging. The economy in 1997 was booming. I think it was the NASDAQ was at or closing in on 5,000. Has never reached that high water mark again. Companies had discretionary funds to spend on education. And in addition, they were moving very quickly. It was the internet, there was mergers and acquisitions, and companies were seeking education, not just a master's degree, which was interesting, but the lifespan of a master's degree taken part-time through our center was about 5 years, and employees were only staying for 3. So there was an interest in companies to provide rapid education to help make a difference during that 3-year window before the person left for another job. And there was a recognition that things were mostly done face-to-face. Universities were still delivering regionally. How could we capitalize on that face-to-face, develop an online program that would leverage that experience, and also, in doing that, educate our faculty about how to deliver to adult learners? Many were not educated in how to do that. They were good with 18 to 22-year-olds, that captive audience here at Stanford. But there's a recognition that there might be a need for more progress and more learning to teach adult learners. So our project goal was really to create a blended learning offering, blending industry and Stanford faculty, sharing the latest theory from our faculty, and also industry-relevant practice. We engaged with Ray Levitt and a group of colleagues from management science and engineering and also our own graduate school of business. We also evolved a partnership with an industry player, an equal partnership. This was not a license deal, but really, and to this day, we meet with that industry partner on a weekly basis to share ideas, to talk about developments. And we were going to work with them to allow them to extend the brand to some extent. And this gets back to the whole brand concept. We had a clear notion of developing a professional certificate with options, alternatives, very much like a graduate degree where you can get, you have electives and core courses. And we wanted to make sure that we provided with the global companies and a mobile professional the opportunity to take courses here on Stanford's campus, which is a great experience, online to enable them to move around, as well our company, our partner company, extends that at company sites, delivering in global locations. And we also wanted to make sure we had a sustainable model, a sustainable business model, which would benefit all parties, faculty and departments that participated, our center, of course, as well as the partner. And in order to do this, it was a dramatic change. One faculty member asked of me, why would we want to engage with a small external firm? We're Stanford. You don't need to do that. We're the Stanford brand. And in fact, we could never have had as successful a program without engaging with this small, fairly nimble firm that really knew how to teach adults and also had design pedagogy to address that market, the adult learners, different than our undergraduates. The result, we've had a fairly good result. The program is 14 years and growing. Success on campus, online, at company sites. I call this multimodal solutions, work for global firms. We have had to evolve new courses to make sure that it remains relevant to professionals as they continue to evolve and grow in their roles. And the biggest concern is the Stanford brand needs protecting. This small, nimble firm often takes liberties, perhaps is too strong a word, but certainly takes advantage and tries to leverage the brand. And it's our responsibility to protect the brand wherever they go and to manage them as they help extend Stanford. And they've done a really good job at doing this, and its vigilance is important. I bring up one more case very briefly, and then we'll wrap it up here with a few thoughts. We have created the Stanford Innovation Entrepreneurship Program, and the context for that program, which we launched in September of 2012, was completely different than the one where we launched the program in 1998, 99. So in this context, we had run a number of programs in innovation entrepreneurship as individual elements, both in China, executives coming here, as well as around the globe. But we had not codified that experience. So we had a vision that there could be something here, and we had a number of successful pilots. We saw an opportunity. No one else was doing this online, a certificate program online only. And with the advent of MOOCs in 2011 in a big way, that changed the landscape. It required that an online offering would be more modular and pedagogically designed with shorter snippets and segments, as well as activities to be supported. And so we worked with two faculty leads, one of whom, Bob Sutton, a faculty member in Management Science and Engineering, and Hayagriva Huggy Rao in the Graduate School of Business. It's the first time that we had an official partnership in an online offering with our Graduate School of Business. We're proud of the fact that we evolved that. And we thought that we could make a dent and an impact in this space, extending Stanford faculty content globally, in new and unique ways. We wanted to create, as we have here, project goals, a compelling modular program featuring business and engineering faculty. We thought the combination was stronger than one individual unit, with project work and TA support. It required that we actually develop a contract with our Graduate School of Business, which was interesting. Also, new compensation schemes for the schools. So working with those internal stakeholders to make sure that whatever emerged would be consistent and reflective of the Stanford quality brand. And we also wanted to make sure we hired TAs and enabled some face-to-face meetings to occur for these online-only students. We created asynchronous programs with WebEx, the same technology we're using here today. And the other thing that we did is we developed the product or launched the product, and we had sequenced delivery of courses. Many universities get very nervous about this. They want to have everything in a nice, neat bow, completely developed. And we took a bit of a risk here, but we also have a core competency in project management, which would allow us to deliver one course at September 2012 and have 3 or 4 courses being delivered later in 2012 and also 2013, so that we could remain one course ahead of the best and fastest student. I'm hoping that makes sense. That sequence of delivery allowed us to get to the market faster. If we had waited, we still wouldn't have launched the program. We just completed our 12th course, and we would have lost 2 years in the marketplace. So the results of that program have been successful. Based on some custom programs that we delivered, as well as the enrollments, we broke even in 8 months. That's investment across all courses and faculty compensation, development, as well as delivery. The faculty members actually enjoyed the studio and modularizing their content because we did a lot of that for them as a service organization. That was important. It changes the brand. We were now a different brand, much more of a service organization inside of Stanford and to our faculty. We continue to enjoy great enrollments, and this is a global program as well, so our brand is getting out there. We don't have to manage the brand as much here with a partner company. We have no partners for this offering. We are thinking about ways to extend and expand this offer to other corporations. We see using innovation and entrepreneurship inside a large company as a huge opportunity. So that gives you some sense of how we have thought about the brand, how we have evolved inside our organization. And I have just a sort of a one final reflection, as particularly as we all face massively open and online courses, the notion that we may have to evolve our brand. Change is coming, and we may be forced to evolve. So I go back to Coca-Cola, a great company. Particularly my wife likes this product, which was created in 1982, as it turns out. And flush from that success, Coke decided to create New Coke, completely changing the formulation and launching that as the product. They did this in 1985. Which is interesting. So we've got a formula here. Let's just do it. And Time Magazine that same year came out with this cover art, which sort of describes what happened. It took Coke until 1992 to close down that product. Today, however, Coke is really an internet company. They actually have these kiosks which will take syrup and carbonated water and combine those in different and unique ways using a touch of a button. In addition, these machines here are connected back channel via the internet, so that the service agents who supply product to these they can just simply dial online and go service the machines as necessary with syrup and carbonated water and so on. And my kids, they love this. They can't get enough of this. So I think Coke is definitely here to stay. I think what I would argue is that as organizations, we have to think about, are we delivering the Diet Coke? Are we trying to deliver the new Coke? Or are we going to evolve our organizations delivering continuing engineering education more along the lines of this kiosk image here? How can we help foster and extend and protect those brands that we're all associated with, and do it in novel ways that actually extend the market and create new excitement for new customers? So as a couple of final thoughts, you need to understand your brand and how your unit fits. We recognize we're a nested doll, and how do you fit it within your own context? We think about identifying the unique value and brand that, and for each of us that'll be different based on the context that we're in, based on the faculty and the unit that we serve, and also understanding where we can provide value and understanding those gaps. We think that as you consider extended education, think about products that will challenge you and your faculty to address and develop offerings for the long term. That benefits everybody. The short one-off is transactional, and the market will sense that and seek solutions elsewhere. Very important. Test, pilot, and experiment. Even with the best laid plans and a 20-year certificate offering, there'll be mistakes, so pilot to get better, to make sure you've got it right. And when you roll something out, do it with care. Get your best people on the product. And also measure everything that you do to validate the assumptions that you've made in your strategy. Consider partnerships, and when you do, make sure there are rules in place, contracts that manage those in a fairly tight way, but also afford each party to win and create success. And then finally, I would argue that to the extent that it's possible, I know engineers are not necessarily wired this way, take a risk. Do so in smart and intelligent ways. No one will remember what you didn't do 20 years from now, but they might remember the risk that you took and the opportunity that you created for your university or your unit. So with that, I thank you for your time and attention. I'm going to hand it back over to Victoriana, who's going to answer and address a few additional questions about how you might get involved in the conversation in Porto.
Thank you, Paul. And also, we're going to open up now to discussion to the audience. If you would like to ask Paul a question, please submit your question in the Q&A section, and he'll answer those questions now. And while we're gathering these questions, just some information here. There we go. So a little information about the next 15th World Conference that will take place in Porto, Portugal, hosted by the Universidade do Porto. You can find more information about the conference by visiting the IACEE org or by contacting the program chair for IACEE 2016, Alfredo Soario. And now let's take a look at some of the questions that we have got going here, and I'm going to allow Paul to kind of help self-select over here.
So I see here a question about, as you extend the brand, how do you maintain the feeling of exclusivity? I think this is something that we actually have worked on. I think one of the things we need to convey to our constituents here on Stanford's campus is that we are going to create a program that will reach a much broader audience, and it's important as we extend the Stanford brand that it'll be a different conception for some of the professional students than it is for our graduate students. I think we were considering and conceiving of that same, think about that, we have the master's degree for line-level engineers. We have a professional program layer that will be different. Now, we still require applications for all of our programs, so we're looking at making sure that there is some vetting process that we're engaged. But we want to make sure that also that those people, those 8 in 10 that we were rejecting, have some experience at Stanford. So that's I hope that helps address that question. I think there's another question here. To what extent do you still struggle with faculty perception that you're diluting the Stanford brand, especially with the advent of MOOCs? It's interesting. I just read an article and talking about, let me address the MOOC part of the question first. We think that the MOOCs is a great way for faculty to promote what they're doing, and by extension, the university benefits. I would say that actually has caused more dilution than developing professional and executive education. In the sense, Stanford content is freely available to a fairly broad market. And if I'm an undergraduate or graduate student, that's to some extent disconcerting, right? I mean, I just paid and made a commitment of 4 years to or more to my degree from Stanford, and now it's available free. So I think we've gotten a little bit of pushback from our alumni community about this. Many also think it's a good experience so long as the same degree is not available. I think, in short, it's a terrific way. MOOCs are a terrific way to market and position the university in particular areas, and maybe attract more students back. I think our colleagues at MIT have seen that result, even with their open courseware initiative. The trickle effect back to applications has been interesting and significant. But continuing with this question, what extent do you still struggle with faculty perception? I think they understand that there's a difference now. We're delivering to a different market, and this market is equally interesting, perhaps not as interesting as the students here on Stanford's campus, but equally as interesting for a variety of different other reasons. It affords for scale in delivery of their content. In some cases, it helps them sell more books because their more popular content gets distributed and builds awareness and so on. So there's another question here. Have you been able to, there is a CIEC program. Will be a 4-hour interactive workshop there. Part of our effort, I think Victoria may have mentioned it, will be connected to the CIEC. I should mention, as an organization, the IACEE tries to connect and reach out across a number of different ASEE, CIEC, as well as the World Engineering Education Forum. We're connected with all these organizations. Our hope in being involved in these kinds of activities is we want to share the lessons that we've learned. We want to enable others to be successful and learn from the scars on the back. One thing I didn't share was a couple of really difficult stories, and so I hope in these various venues in person I can share some of those. I want to sort of protect the innocent parties rather than sharing something online here. So how do we overcome roadblocks? So I'm looking at a question here from my colleague Pat Hall. How do we overcome roadblocks? We've been told, for instance, we can't have our own logo or acronym. We actually had our own acronym and logo, and we've actually gravitated back to Stanford. The recognition is that the Stanford brand is more powerful, and ours is a mouthful as Stanford Center for Professional Development. So I think so that the logo is a specific potential roadblock. Branding is so important, and we want to allow users and customers like the Coca-Cola logo to build quick affinity and affiliation with what that brand represents. It is a tricky business, Pat, as I think you know. I think from a roadblocks perspective, one of the biggest roadblocks we see here at Stanford is faculty apathy. They have so much going on. It's not that they don't care about what we're trying to do. It's that they have other opportunities. And that's the biggest single roadblock that we faced. So having a lot of coffees, building a team that can have intelligent conversations with our faculty, convince them, cajole them to join us and to try something, and make it as easy and as seamless as possible from a technology support perspective is the biggest roadblock that we've faced. And so I shared a lot about that. And certainly branding is a component of that. We found that ratcheting back our brand and logo to closer to the School of Engineering brand and also now the Stanford University lockup and wordmark was a better approach because it then became part of a family rather than some strange amalgam of different letters and words that look completely different. So trying to build consistency of brand and so that the market recognizes this. So I don't know, Victoriana, do you have another question that might be interesting? So Chuck asked a question, Stanford has already recognized brand. What are some of the things that could be done to enhance a brand that is not yet well recognized? You're right. We have benefited from Stanford's position in the marketplace. One of the things that we see is an opportunity for new brands, and I didn't talk about this, is in fact the Stanford School of Engineering Stanford's fairly well known in Asia, but the School of Engineering is not well known. And what we were able to do is actually rebrand and recast ourselves in Asia as the preeminent offering for executive education, as it turns out. And we began that journey in 2004. And I think for those units and maybe universities who don't have a well-recognized brand, there's a huge opportunity, especially if you can engage stakeholders, to change the perception of the brand. And in fact, you may become very well known, better known than the mothership, as it were. I think that that's the opportunity that we see. And the experience in Asia was an interesting one. We did a lot of work in China. We took some risks working with our Office of General Counsel. Of course, we were safe and sane in those risks. But trying to recast ourselves, particularly management science and engineering, a department that is less well known. But we were able to do so because we recognized one attribute with the market in China particularly. Most of them were engineers, and providing management science as a background connecting technology management and engineering discipline was really important for us. I think the other component of that answer is, I mentioned in the talk, think about where your areas of incredible strength are located. Each university has this. Each unit, our units extending continuing engineering education, need to think about ways to extend that particular strength, that area of focus, to make that happen. So I hope that answers that question. I don't know if there are any other questions. Well, I see we're also approaching the end of our time here, so I really appreciate your taking the time today to join. I hope that we can see each other in person at one of these upcoming conferences. CIEC, I'll be there waving the flag, as well as the WEAF conference. And here's a little bit more information about CIEC in Palm Springs. It'll be nice and sunny for those of you on the East Coast that are in cold locations. Come join us in the palm trees, and look forward to seeing you there for this in-depth session on branding for our workshop, as well as other sessions that we produce and work on at the IACEE. So thanks so much.
And thank you, Paul. And this concludes our webinar. If you want more information on the upcoming CIACEE conference or IACEE 2016, you can also watch this webinar on demand after this. And so thank you for attending today's webinar.